Hi, I'm Joe Sorge, and welcome to the Family Law Report, where we examine the problems and challenges facing our family law system. On the show today, we have Los Angeles attorney Richard Fine, who in Part 1 revealed that the LA Superior Court judges were essentially taking very large bribes and continue to do so. In this Part 2, we will learn about how the judges retaliated by putting Richard into solitary confinement to silence him. So Richard, before we talk about what landed you in solitary confinement, let's discuss how you first got the judges mad at you.
I first got in trouble back in 1998 when I stopped the salaries of everyone, because I stopped the salaries of the judges also. They were ticked off at me at that point. Previous to that point, I also was one of the people that found out that the judges were taking money from lectures and putting it under a county tax number, and that got published in the Washington Times magazine from the Washington Times newspaper, so they were mad at me for that.
As I understand it, the judges were using that county tax ID number to avoid paying their income taxes on their lecture fees. You got the State Bar Association upset with you as well, didn't you? Tell us about that.
The State Bar was after me because the judges had gone to the State Bar to try and get me disbarred for my going after the judges in the lawsuit.
And these lawsuits were about the county illegally supplementing the judges' salaries.
I was going at that point in 2002, I was taking $50,000 a year away from each of them, and I contended all the way through that the reason that this whole State Bar proceeding was occurring is because I was being politically attacked for filing the lawsuits.
Okay, so while these disbarment hearings were taking place, you had a case in front of a particularly unfriendly judge, a David P. Yaffe. And as I understand it, you two got into a pissing match in which you challenged his neutrality due to the illegal payments he was receiving from the county of Los Angeles, and in return, he threw you into solitary confinement. Tell us what led up to that.
What happens is that Judge Yaffe issues an order saying that I can't challenge him. But he doesn't serve that order on anybody.
So he was playing dirty?
That's right. Then we have the hearing, and I get Judge Yaffe to admit at that hearing that he is receiving money from the county. He admits it. And subsequent to that hearing, I immediately file a disqualification against him.
And that's because the county was the defendant in the very case in front of him. So what happened next?
He has 10 days in which to respond. He does not respond. Under the law, he is now out. Without question, he's gone. He refuses to get off the case. He then issues a judgment, which is an illegal judgment, saying that I have to pay $40,000 in attorney's fees.
Attorney's fees to the county's attorneys, I might add.
We then have a contempt hearing. In the contempt hearing, I put Judge Yaffe on the stand. He is now acting as the judge and the witness. So he is now a judge judging his own actions. I, again, on the stand, get him to admit that he has taken the money, that he has used the money personally, that he has not used the money for his political campaigns or anything else. We then go through the entire contempt process, and he holds me in contempt.
According to the law, what was the maximum time they could have held you in jail under those circumstances?
At 5 days at the very, very most.
And what happened?
So I was in jail for 18 months. And what they did is it was coercive solitary confinement. They put me into a suicide watch. And that's sort of a real harassing thing, because there they take all your clothes away from you and everything else, any food, any forks or anything, no showers, no nothing. And they kept me up there for a couple of weeks until somebody got in there and said, wait a minute, this is crazy.
And what was it like? Were you allowed to read or listen to the radio or send emails?
No, nothing. You're in a cell, and the cell has all glass on one side of it, and so that they can see into the cell and everything. There was a sort of a big TV, somewhere far away that you could watch and not really hear. But other than that, that's it. That's all you have in there. And
Isn't that cruel and unusual punishment?
oh, clearly, there's absolutely no question about it. Then, then the next thing is that they then moved me to a solitary confinement cell. Now that cell was, I think, 7.5 feet wide, 8 feet high, no windows. From the commode area, it was maybe only 7 feet long. And I was in that cell for about 18 months. And I only got out of that cell maybe 10 times to go outside. And when I was outside, I was in a cage. And the cage was maybe 6 feet by 8 feet by 6 feet.
Did you get to go to the law library to work on your case
Well,
or your appeal?
during this period of time, I was fighting my case by myself. So in the beginning, they did not give me any pencil or paper or anything else to fight the case. Finally, one of the lieutenants in the sheriff's department gave me a pencil, and I got some paper, and then I was allowed to fight the case. The lights were on in the cell 24 hours a day. The temperature in the cell was probably between the 50s and the 60s. When it rained, the cell leaked, and flooded. So you name it, it happened.
How did you get out after 18 months?
The guard came in, and the guard's name was Sandoval. And Sandoval started rousting my cell, which meant that he was, throwing papers around. He said, lie down, face down on your bed. And the guards have a right to roust a cell at any time because, you're a prisoner. They can do whatever they want. And he's rousting the cell. And I said, Sandoval, what are you doing? God's going to punish you, Sandoval. And he kept doing this, and he kept doing this. And I said, Sandoval, you're going to be in trouble. And finally, after about 15 minutes of doing the rousting and things, what Sandoval said, he said, you're out. And I said, Sandoval, that's a worse joke than you're rousting the cell. He said, no, it's true. He said, you're out. He said, I'll go get the order. And sure enough, Yaffe had signed an order that day in which he says that the jails were needed for people, who were committing crimes, and it wasn't worthwhile anymore to keep me in jail because I was not going to be giving up. And he made references that I was crazy and so forth, and therefore he just let me out.
Well, I've been talking to you for quite some time now. You may be stubborn, but you're not crazy. How do you feel? Are you ready to retire, or do you want to stick it to the bastards?
Well, I don't have revenge. That's number one. My position today is the same as my position was before the solitary confinement. These people are of such a nature that they will do anything and everything to protect their illegal payments.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you haven't been broken. Where do we go from here?
The judiciary should not have the power to be a kingdom in and of itself.
Kingdom, it sounds like a Nazi regime. So what do we do to take away some of this power? What would you ask the voters to do?
Right now, my message would be the message of the Campaign for Judicial Integrity. Require your candidate or public official to sign the pledge to eradicate judicial corruption. And it's found on our website, which is www.campaignforjudicialintegrity.org.
Well, thank you so much for the interview. I must say, I feel like I have to apologize for our government. But hopefully through efforts like this and the efforts of yours, we can educate the public and affect change.
I hope so.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks again.
Okay, bye.
So I think this story illustrates the capacity of one person, a judge in this case, to use cruel and unusual tactics to silence someone. Concentrating so much power in a single human being is a major flaw in our system. What's outrageous in this case stems not from whether Judge Yaffe or Richard Fine was right or wrong, but that our system allows such abuse of power without adequate oversight of the judge's decisions or methods. As Susan Sedin-Brino discussed in our 4-part series on judicial bias, our judicial system is devoid of meaningful, objective oversight. Those in charge of the judges are either afraid, complicit, or looking out for their pocketbooks. As we know all too well in family court, where there is no meaningful oversight and where one judge makes all of the decisions, horrendous abuses of power can and do occur. We need to reform the system. We need our judges to live up to the standards that Americans expect. Doctors might hold the life of a person in their hands, but if they make a mistake or commit a crime against the patient, there's an army of lawyers ready to take the malpractice case. When a judge does the equivalent, the cowards and cronies in our system do nothing. That's a problem for our society, one we must change. If you're interested in getting personally involved in reform, please attend our reform conference this November 15th and 16th in Washington, D.C. The details are on our website, www.divorcecorp.com. I'm Joe Sorge, and this is the Family Law Report. Thank you.